Hello, everybody, and welcome to our inaugural episode of Dylan Box. I'm your co-host Ryan Harsch. With me is,
I'm Chris LeRoy.
and we're here to talk about all things Dylan, starting with what's in the box.
Absolutely.
But first, I want to, since this is our first episode, I want to talk a little bit about our personal history with the man himself, and how we came to him and what he means to us. And start with you.
Well, folks would always tell me I'm a songwriter. I've been in this band, The Dangers, for about 40 years. And people would tell me when I would record things or they'd see me in a studio, come up and tell me, I don't want to insult you, but you sound like Bob Dylan. And I would always
Flattering.
I sound like Bob Dylan. Well, I learned to play guitar, with a Bob Dylan easy chord songbook, not ukulele, but, Blowing in the Wind. And that's my first chords that I figured out that were functional. And so being on that ride with this person who's created this body of work that's impossible, will never be equaled, has been a unique journey, but especially if you're a songwriter, because I think all songwriters, they're a little competitive. They want to know that they're doing quality stuff too. So he's the high water mark for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Me, a little different. I'm an English major and a music junkie. And I think I first discovered Dylan when I was about 16.
Okay.
And it really started with an image. It was the cover of Blonde on Blonde.
Ah.
It was just that kind of like that blurred photo. And that really drew me in terms of it just like looking kind of mysterious and not really sure what was about, what was on the inside.
What's there?
The first actual record I heard was "Bringing It All Back Home,"
Okay.
and to me, that's to this day is my favorite album because of that reason, and just because of that album as a whole. It just takes you through this whole range of emotions from the beginning to the end. A lot of it's funny, a lot of it's dark, a lot of it's very surreal, and what have you. So just going from there and listening to everything, it's just amazing to me. How that career spans and touches so many places that everyone has their own favorite stuff and some like other things, and there's things I like that I don't, and there's other things I don't like so much. So.
People will die on a hill about a bad Dylan song, or an album that they just don't like, and yet there is. I mean, it's embarrassing, but there is no Dylan album I don't like, even from the. It can be considered the lowest of low, because I'm not approaching it as a critic. I'm a consumer or a person who just listens with these ears and is affected in these ways. Right. And he just has a new album out, and it's cool to be able to start this show or this segment that will be in the show, whatever this ends up being.
Yeah.
To do it right now, when he has a brand new album and he's almost 80 years old, and he has a high batting percentage.
Absolutely. We'll get to that album soon enough, but I think we're starting with probably the most contentious era, I believe.
I think so.
So should we look on purpose?
Oh, maybe. Maybe could be.
Yeah.
Should we look what's in the Dylan box?
Yeah, go ahead and grab out and dig a gander in there.
Here we go. See how tall I can be? Let's go with... Here today, We're going to be talking about this box set of Bob Dylan's, very controversial era. We had 3 albums that is Christian-themed records, and a review of it. People started looking back as these box sets have come out. Each one of them has had a kind of revision, a review, a rethinking of what that music was, what that era was. And I liked those albums to begin with. But when I went through this set and read the stuff and got involved with the review of it, it's even more powerful for me than I ever expected. So we're going to talk today. Sometimes we'll be talking about box sets, sometimes about singles, sometimes just about an idea. But this is a good place to start, because in some people's book, a great story that's in here one of the essays where the writer talks about he's a Bob Dylan champion and loved Dylan, but didn't want to hear anything about his Christian story. And so he bought the albums, but never took the seal off.
Who was that? Is that Marcus?
No, it's not Marcus. It's we'll have to go back to who's but this is what he reveals.
Right.
Marcus listened to it, but here's a guy who's just a total fan, didn't even want to consider listening to them, and heard these takes from the box set and these live shows from this and said, I was in San Francisco when he played at the Warfield,
right.
And I didn't go because I didn't want to listen to this, and it's really a good band, and there's really great things there. So we'll get to celebrate this music from here. So we'll be talking about this. We can set that down, but it'll be part of our story today.
I wanted to start with reading a page from this book. There's a series of these books that I like by Paul Williams. Have you heard of these books?
I told Maria I would hold this.
Oh, we got the product place.
Yeah, product places, right. So she could see that. Trouble No More, and then our other book. Go ahead.
Right. This was part of this book has I guess it's a novella by Paul. It's called Dylan, What Happened?
Wow.
And he published this at the tail end of '79 in like a short book form. And I just want to kind of read a little bit just to set up what we're going to talk about a little bit. Something has definitely happened to Bob Dylan. This isn't the first time he's transformed himself. Certainly not the first time his fans have had a new Dylan to puzzle over. But could anyone have imagined in 1965, when Dylan fans were howling and booing that their hero had sold out by walking on stage with an electric guitar, that 14 years later, Bob Dylan would walk out on stage and sing 17 songs, every one of which makes reference to and centers around the singer's special relationship with Jesus Christ.
There you go.
Right? And then it's just kind of like another thing he says that struck me. It was hard for me to accept Mick Jagger saying, "Stick my knife right down your throat, baby," even though he said it on my favorite Rolling Stones album ever. It is equally hard for me to come to terms with and identify with Bob Dylan singing, "I've been saved by the blood of the Lamb." Mm. So, and the whole thing, he does absolutely like this era in his writing, what he talks about, but he also examines reasons why people may not like it so much.
Yeah.
And also the public backlash, because maybe we look at like what led up to this. And we got to look at what came before this and maybe what started this era for him.
To me, it seems like he was, an early critical darling. Everyone loves mid-'60s Dylan. You kind of have to. It's the best things that are going on. You've got like a Rolling Stone. How are you going to beat that? It's one of the most important songs of our culture. And people had already got, they're not going to like his voice or whatnot. Those people have been thinned from the herd way back then. All they have is this music and the power of this stuff, and he's at this pinnacle. And it's covered a lot in No Direction Home movie, where he just sort of, that he's riding this train, and it's getting out of control for him, and he has his motorcycle accident, and he's out, and he resets. So he comes back. Here's John Wesley Harding. Here's, Nashville Skyline. He comes back in this different Dylan, has his country chops, said he stopped smoking, and he had that really unusual voice that he used.
No drugs, probably.
Something happened. Yeah. I don't know. You can blame all that about that voice, but it had its own beauty, and so he kind of moved to the second phase of the career. People are excited about him. Something. Then, just as would be with any career, you've heard Bob Dylan for many, many years, and you're, can you top this? Or this isn't as good as Blonde on Blonde. This isn't as good as Bring It All Back Home. Right. And yet, these were really great albums. He had this second gigantic, pulsing, masterpiece.
Help us.
Yeah, so Blood on the Tracks.
Is that in the box?
It is, but next album. But so he reaches the second pinnacle. He's been up, he's been down, kind of building towards it, gaining new strength, he has self-portrait. Like, people kind of, we're not so sure about him. He's redeemed, and critically he gets Blood on the Tracks, and then how are you going to top these things? He's someone that is high as the wave, the crest of the wave is so high that it's just plain unfair.
Yeah.
How are you going to top if you had one song as good as this, much less a whole album, much less weave back to this other pinnacle, and then again, as he's going through this cycle, he gets to Street Legal.
Yeah.
Of which me and John Hickman really love that album. You'll find so many people who just absolutely loathe it. Think
the mixing was a problem for a lot of people.
It sounded bad. Said it wasn't all this stuff. But a lot of my favorite songs, "Change of the Guards." I have no idea what it's about, but I love that song.
Senior, I love Senior.
There's some great songs in it, but it got panned really bad. So he's at the low ebb of this wave, and he's out and he's touring, and he's always going to tour, but someone throws a cross at him on stage, and rather than dodging it, he picks it up, he puts it in his pocket. A few days later, he's in a hotel, and I think he's at a low ebb of his creative self. Don't know about his personal self, but of his creative self. I think he's seen these waves. He was tired before. And then he says he's in his hotel room and he pulls out this cross and he says he felt something. He is captivated by a presence in the room, so much so, he ditches so many things. He takes so many risks. He says, I'm willing, based on what I felt, to write some new songs. And I'm not going to play my old songs. I'm just going to do this. And
forgo everything.
And it's going to kind of sneak in his first, the first album. You know, his big was considered a bit of a comeback, right? People loved this as a very commercial hit. Even his manager was unsure because he was telling the bass player, he goes, all these songs seem to be about God.
That's a common theme here.
Houston, we got a problem. Yeah. How are we going to market this stuff? And yet, as an album, as a conception, as a look, as the artwork, as a strong Dylan album, it's just good. Sorry about it.
Yeah.
But so many people were unprepared for this album or this new wave that they were going to experience through him. And so I think that kind of gets us up to the spot, is that there were folks who loved Dylan, lived with Dylan, grew with Dylan, loved Dylan. We're getting a little frazzled about Street Legal, but Dylan has more of a say on this music than I think the fans do. Absolutely. And so this is a very most personal inside work, and it brings us to an interesting place. So he turns this album out. People were skeptical about it, but it's a really good album. Got great reviews in Rolling Stone, and yet when he started touring, they go, "What? You're not playing
Blowing in the
Stone?
wind. Yeah, where's
Stone me again? If you're not going to play these things, we don't want to really hear this Christian thing." And it just opened up Pandora's box.
Because he does the Warfield, I think, for 14 nights to kick off his tour.
Okay.
And he plays the same set every night.
Yeah.
Like same song, same set every night. It starts with his backup singers coming out and telling a story, and there's like a mini gospel set. And then Dylan comes out, and it's the same set, same songs every night for 14 nights. And people go, and there's ebbs and flows through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's funny how reading like reviews of it, people like the disappointment, people this dismay, more so than like when Self Portrait came out.
Oh, yeah.
Self Portrait came out. Grill Marcus says, "What is this shit?"
Yeah.
What is this? And
Pardon his French.
Right. Pardon our French, right? But
yes.
Listening to it though,
yeah.
And for me, to be honest with you, I wasn't. I might have heard it at some point, but I didn't really gravitate towards it.
Okay.
I'm a really hardcore 60s Dylan guy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've liked his other, and then getting into like Blood on the Tracks and everything else. And so once you start looking at his other stuff, it's like opening up new boxes.
Yeah.
It's like opening up other kind of things that are in orbit and finding new eras that are informed by what came before, but then also that are completely different.
Yeah.
Coming to this, it struck me how great the music was, how solid the band sounds, and like you said, how personal the music was, because even what people think of as his most personal album, Blood on the Tracks, a lot of that's kind of oblique. You know, he's writing it in different points of view, and he's saying you don't really kind of know where you're at. He was working with an artist at the time who was kind of helping him construct these pieces.
Yeah.
But with this, I mean, he's actually coming out and saying things about his life that if you listen to the words, he's telling you what's going on.
The obliqueness, that's a very interesting piece, because we had grown up with abstract Dylan. Mm-hmm. And again, it was earned. When you know, the first incarnations where he, I was just watching the James Baldwin, the documentary, I'm Not Your Negro.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Super powerful. Mm-hmm. But here's Dylan's little head popping in there, and he's singing on the steps, you know, he's there with Martin Luther King. He's there with everyone. Right. And he's this voice of this story, and he's singing about Medgar Evans, and yet he still couches it in terms that a poet would do. You know, it's only a pawn in your game, which was symbolic, and you were used to that. People would not anticipate that the man who's singing that pretty direct song, who's using some poetry to create the story, is the person that a couple of years later is going to be psychedelic. Right. And that this oblique language, we grew with him through that language, and it didn't seem so complicated later on.
Right.
So even, you know, for anything, especially street legal, that's where a lot of the criticisms of that is Change of the Guards. I just love the riff. He's kind of trying to sound like Springsteen a little bit or something. I love the saxophone riff.
I heard a lot of like Bruce in some of these songs.
Yeah, and so they were saying, oh, well, you're trying to be this way. And yet it was Dylan just kind of hashing through some very complicated scenarios and symbols and stories. So the criticism, well, he's gotten so oblique, no one knows what you're even talking about here. What is this album? Why is this even, why should we be listening to this? On Soul Train Running, he enters this realm of the personal. And it's still, they're softened. These are softer songs than what would happen with Saved album or Shot of Love, but certainly Saved, where this is his personal vision and his interaction with that cross and that story told at a very close proximity. But he still had enough of his kind of pop nature that this is a very polished version. If he'd done 2 more albums like this, it wouldn't have scared everyone, because it would still have been accessible and sort of pop. Not your 65 Dylan, but certainly a 70s good place to be. Muscle Shoals.
Wexler produced, right?
Right.
I mean, I'd say it's one of his most polished albums.
Oh, it's funky and it's just good. It's just really good. And that would have been acceptable. And then he moved on to Saved, and the language became harsher and more staunch biblical phrases. He started talking more like Jesus. Jesus' notion in that time is that the kingdom of God is at hand, that this world is going to end.
Right.
Not in 2020, although maybe. It was then. And you better get yourself prepared now. I'm serious about this, he's telling these people, and he's saying this is on us.
And it wasn't just on the record. He was on stage,
absolutely,
saying these things, and it makes a lot of reference to stuff going on in the Middle East.
Oh,
and right? And
yeah.
So I'd be listening to that, and I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. So he's, in some ways, he went from his kind of personal feeling to it, but he still has the poetry of Bob Dylan. As he moves through this, and what happens in these live shows is that you're finding someone who's kind of settling into, on one way, the Christian vernacular, to where these are the words they're using, that a lot of people would use, but he's making it his own. And what sounds so powerful to me is that he's sort of working through what is my personal experience about this story, with this vision, with this belief. But I'm a rock guy, and I'm going to filter this the only way that I can. Yeah. It's the only way I'm as a songwriter and as a band. So he ends up putting this just badass band. And these songs, even within these 3 albums, if you do this arc, and as a follow-up to this, we'll probably do the arc of those 3 albums.
Yeah.
It goes from polished to some pretty severe The recording is kind of questionable.
Yeah.
And some more dire news. It's
Yeah.
like, I am telling you,
Whoa.
it's really honest now.
Hey,
it was
we get
bad
it.
last time, but it's really
Yeah.
here now.
Right.
And so that album, this was very well received.
Uh-huh.
That it saved Dump. It was like no one wanted. It had scary cover with his hand in blood. And yet, there's a truth to this thing, and he's talking about a truth for him that isn't easy to swallow.
We saw this kind of coming too, though. I mean, we meaning like if I was back then, if I was alive, hearing this, because he would make biblical references constantly in his music. I know when he lived in Woodstock, he had a large Bible like set up in his living room.
Yeah.
And when the guys in the band said that when they were doing the basement tapes, he would frequently go to that Bible and just pull stuff out of there and just drop it in the songs that we're doing.
Yeah.
So it seems that it's funny to me how people were so shocked, because it's like, well, he pulls from literature, he pulls from pop culture, he pulls from this long tradition of music, and just drops it into his songs, and sometimes just even makes it part of who he is. And yet, what better source of material than the Bible?
Yeah.
And that goes for a lot of writers.
A lot of Keith Jarrett.
Yes.
And he's sort of a irritant too. I mean, people, you would get mad at people when they cough at his concert.
Absolutely.
But he does this beautiful music, and he's very talented. But in an interview, he was saying that I do music because I want people to rise up. Mm-hmm. To rise up into what I'm playing. Right. I'm not going to play down. I want people to rise up. What I think what has happened with Dylan, because of his artistry, because of his pure talent, he shifts gears based on the wind blowing, what interests him. And he's always, in most cases, seeming to be creating something that people will think about, wrestle with, rise up into.
Right.
Doesn't have to believe him, don't have to like his voice, but the bar that he's setting here, he's asking folks to move with him. And so I like the notion about this slow train. Is Dylan himself is this slow train.
Yes.
He's the slowest train.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have him. We're lucky to have someone that we can gauge. So how long can an American artist perform and be vibrant and meaningful? There's songs on his brand new album that are connected to his religious themes.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some, as he did way back in his earliest album, working through what is the story of our lives?
Yeah.
What is the literature of our lives? What are the images and symbols of our lives?
He's creating a tapestry.
Yeah, tapestry is a good way. I'm going to take these things and I'm going to weave them in a way that's meaningful to me first.
Right.
And I care enough about my audience. He always seems very disconnected to his audience when he plays.
Yeah.
Except on this music. He
engages them for sure.
The DVD that goes with this is a show. It's a mix of his live show. It could be for the Warfield, I think.
Yeah.
And the actor Michael
Shannon. Very intense
who
man.
Does a gospel preaching piece in between songs, which would seem to be very disruptive. If you're going to have this guy,
concert film, and then
it's a thing of beauty because it's very interesting what he's presenting. It is not. He doesn't have a lot of good things to say about rich people.
No.
And their ability to get through camel needle, but his joy, Dylan's joy in performance. And when do you see Dylan grabbing a microphone and just dancing out to the crowd, putting stuff down and just being a crooner? Back up until that time, zero didn't happen.
In Rolling Thunder, he was kind of starting to become that like rock star.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to that extent.
Still had his guitar. He was riveted and
he was
cemented.
Even like kind of hiding, you could say, in a like big hat, white,
white face.
So it's like he's still coming to terms with who he is,
right?
In terms of a performing artist on a stage,
right?
Because if we talk about this, you absolutely have to talk about his stage performance, because they're almost two different things.
He is this unleashed joy, that you just, it's a Dylan you might not even know. And so that's what
Not what I knew when I listened to it.
Oh no! What is this? And the value of just the process of people going back and re-releasing these box sets and calling performances and really analyzing something worth analyzing. This joy that comes from him seems to me personal. It seems like he believes what he's talking about, and for the first time in his career, he's not going to use the poetry. He's not going to say pawn in our game. He's going to tell you as directly as he can his message, because he believes it has to be delivered.
Sure.
And this, artists have to kind of play with that. Play with how you never want to be purposely oblique.
Right.
You want to communicate something, but you ask anyone about their song, they go, well, I can't tell you what the song means and why not. So, well, because they don't know, but
a billion interpretations.
There's a billion interpretations, and that's sort of the point, is that I wouldn't want to limit. I was the people who would write, I'll go and look for my songs online. The people will have done the tabs and the lyrics to it.
That's wrong.
And but it's good because
it's an interpretation.
Well, there's an interpretation, and the chorus may not be right, but there's some of the lyrics that people have done or thought what was said in songs, and they're so much better than what I had written. And I was like, wow, if I had thought of
There's
that.
a bathroom on the right.
Yeah, you go. Exactly. But I'm thinking that he, in this phase and this time, is trying to be as clear as humanly possible.
Sure.
Because what's at stake? He is like, he's very Jesus-like, and so that his message is that this is the kingdom of God's at hand. You got to pay attention. So it just kind of rivers, and the closer he gets to that, the more uncomfortable people get.
Yeah.
If that's not going to be,
if that's not their thing, I think it's interesting too, because it creates a different sort of timelessness than a pawn in their game, or time they are changing, or blowing in the wind, because those songs are no more relevant than right now. Like stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah.
It's like these songs were written 60 years ago, and they could have been written yesterday based on what's happened so far this year. So I mean, and I think by using that language that he used, it's just they just stand up as these metaphors that can be applied to any country, any situation.
Right.
With this, it's just it's not like it's stuck in a time, but it's a different kind of timelessness. You can still study it, and but it's not gonna apply for everyone, but it should be appreciated.
Yeah.
It should be examined, because to me as well, it's also maybe the point he was at was maybe a comment on the excess of the 70s and the 60s, and he was just kind of a byproduct of that. I mean, he was literally, like you said, kind of burned out.
Yeah.
And this is what he found at the end of the road. So maybe what he was saying here was like, this is what I found after, because you can't be doing drugs and running around and doing all that stuff forever, and riding motorcycles and crashing and going on crazy tours, and whatever else anyone was doing.
Right.
So this was like kind of the culmination of his journey.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people need to understand it's a major part of his life, because there was a little bit after those 3 albums. Like, did this kind of go away, or just kind of? I mean,
well, it floats into infidels, and again, because word got out, say Dylan's not a Christian anymore.
What's going on?
And so go get infidels, as people will run to it.
Yeah.
But it's also a great album.
It is.
But he has religious themes that have continued.
Right.
He has a song on his new album, I'm prepared, or I'm giving myself up to you, or what is that name of this? I never know the names. I'm prepared to give myself to you, I think.
I don't know the names.
You could have, it could be about a friend or a lover or such and such, but it's not. It's a religious song. Just no way else you get
Exactly.
it. When you get down to it, it's a religious song. So did he ever get away from the Christian Dylan or the religious or the spiritual Dylan? No. Dylan was the spiritual Dylan when he was writing those protest songs. Dylan was the spiritual Dylan that had something extra to give to people, or he would not have, he wouldn't be here.
Right.
You would not have this cult. It's very similar to things about Jesus. There's a great notion about the challenge of Christianity is that hear Jesus' words, and then you tell the next person, and they tell the next person in line, and it then starts to deteriorate as more people have shared.
Biggest game of telephone ever.
Right. He said the Word of God will, as by the 3M company, what is this? We don't know exactly what it is because we can't be this original source, and so the impact, no matter what religion or non-religion you are, the impact of Jesus in this place and time had to be so powerful.
Right.
He's just another dude who is causing trouble and he gets killed. But the power of that story, even as handed out to other people, has stayed with us. As Dylan, not that he's Jesus, but his impact across such a broad thing is because there's another gear into this guy.
Yeah.
Poetically, creatively, that has reached some people who can leave whole eras away and still find him.
And you look at Dylan as to me, the ultimate trickster, and you always think, is this something he's doing again? It's just like a big joke that only he's in on. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people were like, okay, when are we going to stop with the crosses and the sermonizing?
Yeah.
I'm sure that might have happened for a couple months.
Sure.
Until people were like, wait a minute, this is really happening here. So it reminds me of this, of artists that go through, with him especially, and the reason why he's so endearing to this day is he will master an art form, or he'll master a genre, and he'll just completely own it and then move on to something different. Right. So I think that's kind of what happened at the end of this, where he felt that's as far as I can go.
This is what I've done with this.
This is what I've done, but this is still a part of me now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to forget this, because he's never really written off any era of his music. I mean, he's never really come out and said, I don't know what I was thinking when I did this album, like other people have done, but
that's a good point.
It's always a point. It's always a part of him.
Yeah, he doesn't trash it. He always questions the people who dive so deep. Sorry, folks. Into his lyrics and say, what he always says about Grail Marcus. He goes, I don't know about that guy.
Yeah,
he's like making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't know if I meant all that, but he's not judging. He's just saying, take the song for what it is. Let's move on. Yeah. It was a waltz. I'm going to play it as this thing. I'm going to play it as this thing, because even I feel free to change these lyrics.
Right.
I feel sure. So it's the bit of the trickster in him, or well, I think it's the artist in him that just propels him forward. He says, I have to do this. I hope, you can go to Expecting Rain and you can see every set of every show, and you can look through one. I hope he still plays significantly. Every Grain of Sand.
Great song.
For me, it's going to be the top 5 Dylan song. And pushing, because what he takes on, the spirit in that song, his harmonica playing at the end of that song, it's all.
I had that on the other day because I was, for this assignment. I've been listening to this for the last week.
Yeah.
And that song made me stop what I was doing and just be like, oh, this is something going on here.
Yeah.
A lot of these songs did. I mean, just like the musicianship and the sentiment, and it's absolutely genuine.
Yeah.
You don't ever feel at one time, he's putting you on, like I said, but it's. Yeah, I mean, he's produced some very powerful music here that should be at least considered and not discounted from his overall.
Absolutely, yeah. So if people, just like the guy who bought the album but didn't take the shrink wrap off it until he heard this thing, if you have skipped over this, or you're kind of letting your own personal prejudices keep you away from a true artist, you really got to reset. This is a great time. I'm talking to a lot of my artist friends, and we're all kind of thinking that. It's that as terrible as these times are, and that's just the pandemic, much less the bigger pandemic, is racism, the problems that we have. But what a great challenging time for people to stop, reset, think who they are, think what they're about, and be prepared to be different. Be prepared to be different. There's not. Take a risk to be different.
Do something that you haven't done ordinarily, or get into something, or
open yourself up a bit, and there's going to be I was talking to my friend Lisa from the Bell Rays, and she was saying, I've never felt so alive as I do right now. That this is an important time. It's making me reevaluate who I am, what we're doing, why we're doing it as a band. And it's not just being as a band, there's all sorts of other levels, but Dylan's a music person, and we're not going to relate to him as, we're not going to see him at the Stater Brothers.
He probably wouldn't even talk to us.
He would probably shine us on.
Tell
What
us
a
to go
creep,
away.
big creep.
Yeah.
But no, our engagement with our favorite artists is that they've left something on the plate or something at our door, and they invited us to consider stuff. So to take this whole 3 powerful things, plus what's so nice about this set is all these live things and unreleased songs. There's some really good material that didn't make it onto those albums, and again, you don't have to be a Dylan completist to be open to what's great. I think about this when any of my favorite artists, Hendrix or the Who or the Kinks or the Beatles or the Stones, any of these people, there's albums, Lou Reed, there's albums that you would say, boy, this is the worst Lou Reed album.
I'm not going to listen to this.
And then, but I'll listen to it and I will find something there. Dang.
Even Metal Machine.
Oh, even Metal Machine. Side 2. I will find something. Not that I'm forced to, but it's just I want to be as open to other artists as humanly possible. But I just think as consumers, as listeners, you can't have great art without great listeners, with a great audience, without people who want to be engaged at this other level. The people who are in bands are the people who are writers. The thing they love the most is someone who's given them careful consideration. They thought, they spent that extra minute. I'd play someplace, or we'd be at the barn in Riverside, and this college campus. We're a good band, a big fish in a little pond in a way. But, there's people in the front who will like anything just because it's playing.
They're in front.
Woohoo! And I like those people. But they're not the folks that actually would ever talk to me.
Yeah, they're just incredibly earnest.
They're there, they have things, but there's some people on the periphery who will come up to me after and go, oh, you had that song when you said this. Sometimes they even write what the lyrics are, correct? But they're listening at this other level. And as a person a creator, that's the height of stuff. You say someone listened a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because they found
they extracted their own meaning from something, and that's like back to what you said about this time more than anything. At this time, you can extract your own meaning from what's going on. Hopefully, it's a positive meaning. But then, what are you going to do with it now? Getting back to this, what are you going to do with this going forward, or how is it going to inspire you? Because I'm constantly inspired by everything. Art and everything I go with.
Right.
You have to make it kind of a part of you, and hopefully, like I said, it's a positive thing. But with this, you have to take it for what it is.
Yeah.
If I were to look at what he does and what other similar artists do, it's like they're creating this gigantic collage that tells a story, and you can't ever not look at one part of that and be like, they all tell the same story. It's all part of the same thing.
I think it is, and I think it's this invitation to. It's this invitation to think and to feel, to respond. All art is like that.
Right.
And if folks out again, if you haven't listened to this album, it's not like we're just trying to get you to listen to the thing. But it's just so many people.
It's not a QVC infomercial.
Although it could be if it was standing up. You say there's only 19 left.
10 minutes left.
There's 19.
We should
16 left.
We should look at what else is in the box.
Let's see what else is in the box, because
I know there's other things in
to help you along your journey with Trouble No More,
supplemental
material, you can have. Oh, wonderful book, Trouble in Mind.
And that's all about, which I have on my shelf but I haven't read, but that's all about this era.
Oh, yeah.
Good writer, too.
Good writer, and again, it just, you kind of see what the band was doing, and it's just a little deeper portrait, and you respect that music even better when you read this book. So Trouble in Mind is a really good one.
And I like the subtitle, What Really Happened.
That's right.
Because we've been wondering.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, we haven't, what really happened? Bob, what's going on?
Bob, what's going on, dude? Another Dylan's Visions of Sin, a thicker tome meditation.
Almost like a textbook.
It's quite dense.
I have that one, yeah.
Oh, it is. And again,
very small print.
Small print.
Yeah. Daunting.
Yes, it's like. Okay, that was nice. But again, just some different people delve into Dylan because there's something to delve into. We couldn't all just be making this up. This isn't Christopher Marlowe wrote all of Shakespeare stuff. Shakespeare's with us right now. He's here right now, and it's good to participate in these because you have a lot of people who have thought a lot and written a lot about Dylan.
And you've had a lot of people that have gone through his trash and pulled stuff, right? I mean,
right.
Literally like, pulled stuff out and tried
Yeah.
to assemble so you could see like kind of the what he's inspired.
He
From the
has.
academic to all the way to that level. Just, you can't really name a lot of other artists that have done that.
Yeah, that's true. It'd be great if a lot of artists were doing that to each other.
Sure.
You know, so he goes, someone's in my trash. You know, it's like, Pink, get out of my trash. I wrote that song.
You're my neighbor.
Yeah, you're my
Leave me
neighbor.
alone.
Be a good neighbor. Be a good neighbor. But again, more philosophical approach into some of these deeper themes and whatnot. A rewarding book.
Because it makes reference to like other things in literature and things in the Bible, obviously. So you know, it's a good compendium of other things.
Yeah,
it's not just all Dylan. You know, it shows you like where he gets this stuff from, which to me is interesting.
Yeah.
And hopefully it is to others, but you know,
That's
depends on how deep you want to dive into it, I guess.
You got time. You have time. Apparently, you all have time now.
Yes, of course. Oh, we got more?
Do we?
Okay. I think so. I
Is
think I
anything
see
else
a book there on the side.
Oh yeah,
yes.
one more. But well, there's always
Oh, we got this.
there's always the CD. So again, if you want to sell your child and buy
By
these
the
as
way,
vinyl,
this one one of the least favorite album covers. Not a lot going on, right? I mean, what do you think?
I like it
maybe
because
second to the
pop
new
art.
album.
I like the pop art. I don't know. I think they were taking it literally. Well, we're going to give them a shot of love.
Sure, yeah.
A lot of people hate that album cover,
Yeah.
but not as much as people who hated what was the Saved album cover. Do they
What's
even
going
have?
on there?
Well,
Oh,
the
yeah.
original one, there was just there was a hand. Do they? No,
There's like a couple hands
there's
coming
no.
up.
Yeah,
and
they
there's-
kind of.
Yeah.
You know, is this God reaching man, and there's.
He's picked me.
It's very. I was good, but that album cover doesn't exist anymore. Now you got him
Really?
playing this.
Like,
yeah,
do
you
they-
can't buy it. Like, so I have.
Do you have a vinyl of it?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I was going to bring that, but I was running.
They're not printing that anymore. though.
Oh no,
Yeah.
you
Wow.
won't even get. So if you really.
Hardcore.
I have my friend Gary who would say, "Please, they shouldn't have printed it the first time." But I loves it. I loves it. And the last one again, and this is generic, and we might bring
yeah.
this back on another
Sure.
version of
That
this.
applies to everything.
He just goes over these sessions, and he'll tell you how these things got put together, and it's concise, but it's just sort of fun. I go, well, how did they record that album, and what were some of the challenges? So he talks a lot about Saved and how just sonically, here's a great piece about how that those songs may have been better. They worked them out. In the first album, they did it quick, but they polished it. And the second album, they've been playing these songs on the road, and they came in almost knowing the songs too well, especially
Which can happen.
Solid Rock.
Right.
And he said he lost the groove of it.
Right.
And I always thought it was one of my favorite songs on Saved.
It's great.
And if you get saved, you'll like that song or pressing on. But if you hear Solid Rock off the Trouble No More, there's a couple in there you'll go, oh my goodness, this could have been.
They get into like this, like you said, this crazy groove. But like other songs, as I listen to, a lot of them are like there's some reggae. There's like some different things that he never really did before. Which I thought was interesting. Like he chose this opportunity because it's like now you have this hot band.
Let's see what we can do.
He had Jim Keltner on drums, who is like a phenomenal session drummer. Who I think he said, I read in somewhere he said he had a kind of a little issue with the fact that all the songs had this religious tone, but he said, you know what, the band is their conviction is so high, and everyone's playing so well that I don't have an issue. Like I'm not going to have an issue with it. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
interesting. The kind of musician thing is I'm getting the spirit of this band.
Sure.
I'm going to try to beat Jesus out of them.
Because it's funny though, because it's like the fans will doubt the music, but then the band itself is like, he had the backup singers. I mean, they were all steeped in gospel. No. So like that wasn't an issue. But then he had handpicked other guys from different areas of the country and just kind of put them in there. And they were like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's not a band of superstars, but Tim Drummond, the bass player, especially if you watch in this box set the movie that goes with it, he's just a ball of fire.
Yeah.
It's like, man, anyone would want that bass player in their band because he's just fun. He's just looking at everybody like, isn't this fun?
Yeah.
And he's just like, he looks so goofy, and it's so great. That's rock and roll.
Fun to watch.
But yeah, so I think we covered a good opening thing. We certainly would not have left you wondering if you should try to look up Bob Dylan's Trouble No More. You should. It'll be a great rewarding experience.
Is that hard to find? Like, is that?
I think as the box set, it's still available.
Yeah.
You can still get it. If you're trying to get it vinyl, again, you have to sell your home.
To mortgage your other vinyls.
Yeah. but as a CD thing, it really, as long as we're up, it's really got a great set of photos.
Like, I've noticed
just as so well done. Yeah, it's packaged so well. There's your favorite cover.
Oh yeah,
Shot of Love.
Right.
Shot of Love.
That's the Spanish version.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay.
Oh, if I'd been really quick, I would have said that in Spanish. But I'm not quick.
Right.
But some great essays at the front, kind of explaining the intent of the album, how it kind of came together, or this one guy's personal experience with re-experiencing it, which was a good confession. And then just every part of the package, and even the great way that I always get into this stuff, the quality of the artwork, even for where they put the CDs, gives you kind of the spirit. What was it like at that time when you were doing this?
Yeah.
All points to get you to kind of relive that place in time.
Lucky are we as fans, like, just keep getting these. I mean, I remember like early back when I was talking about the first album, like the next stuff I got into was Bootleg Series 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And on CDs back then, and that was because it spanned everything up until like a little bit after Infidels, and then there was nothing for a while, right? And then they started coming out,
they really
they're still coming out.
They probably just looked at, here's the resources, here's where we're going to get our Dylan money, but let's do it right. I mean, they all are packaged with love,
right?
And they want to.
And it's like
he wasn't.
We have a lot of this stuff not only because of the live documentation, but he wasn't like a one and done studio artist, right? So I mean, he'd make multiple takes of songs.
Yeah.
And you hear like a Cutting Edge box set, you'll hear like a lot of those songs sound completely different. Like, from what they came to be.
And that'll be fun. One of the things that we're doing with Dylan boxes, we'll take like a box and we'll just kind of talk about how it made us feel, what to look for. And that's just box sets, but he's worthy of anything, whether it's an album thing or, an article. I just think it's interesting to talk about him. I feel better that we did that today.
Yes.
And we probably have a wrap on, but we did get to share all these things. We even kept the Dylan box on here, so the next time we come back, Ryan Harsch, we'll fill up the Dylan box again.
Okay.
And
we might have to make it bigger, do accompany vinyl box sets, right?
This is true.
Yeah. So
we'll have to see if Lo-Fi Studio.
This might evolve into a Dylan chest. Like it's like a larger
treasure chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this show people will be able to see clips of parts of it from our new thing. It's called Lo-Fi Lounge. Chris LeRoy's Lo-Fi Lounge. And you'll get little pieces of our interview, but we're gonna kind of figure out how we're going to store these and have them archived stuff, because we had fun talking about
absolutely.
So
and I don't know what we want to do next time, but there's like a lot to talk about, so we can break down everything.
I'm with you. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us again. I'm Ryan Harsch.
And I'm Chris LeRoy.
And thanks for stopping by, Dylan Box. See you next time.
Okay.
All right.
That was really good.
Yeah.
That was good. It got philosophical.
Yeah.